We have this saying, practice makes perfect. He's saying in that book that that's not actually true, that practice doesn't actually make perfect. He said what practice does is it embeds habits. I think that when I've been looking at everybody's work, I think everybody's made progress. I think to me, that's pretty clear that every single person has made progress. You guys are at slightly different levels, which is fine. That's expected, right? But I think overall, you're all demonstrating a progression in understanding how writing works, structure, narrative, all that kind of stuff, right? All the stuff that we've been going over. We do have an example which I want to go over today. Parish, are you there? Is she there, Parish?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm going to ask you to read your example in a bit. Yeah, but there's a few things I just want to cover first. Because Parish, is it your second time doing this? Because did you do it before by yourself?
Yeah, for my mocks, I did
Yeah.
it and I was marked very low.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she got marked really unfairly in her mocks, very unfairly. She actually wrote a really good piece in her mocks. It was excellent. I think if it was an exam, they probably would have given her a grade 9, but they just marked it totally unfairly. So this can happen, right? But the piece of writing was excellent. It was very, very good. Yeah. Now, even you, Mesa, all of you guys, all of you have demonstrated progress, which is excellent, right? But I am trying to get you to 100%. I am trying to get you to 100%. And this is one thing that I want you guys to try your best to start to develop is a 100% mindset, right? But it's okay. Like it's not it's not an instant thing, right? You're not going to be instantly at a grade 9. It doesn't work like that. Writing happens in progressive stages, and that's what I'm trying to get you guys to just get used to that and just accept it, because that's just the reality. I'm not saying it's the reality because you guys are not good. You are good. But I'm saying even for Shakespeare, he would have had to do that. Even if you're looking at like top professional authors, you got people like Stephen King. He sold some ridiculous number of books. It's something like 350 million books that he sold. He would have to do drafting as well. All right. It's the normal case for everyone. I have to do it as well. Everybody has to do it. And that's what I want you guys to get used to, the fact that your writing progresses over time, right? Obviously, we need to get to a point later on where you're able to produce high quality piece of work in the first time of asking, right? But we tend to really only focus on that towards the exams, right? So, for example, what we do is last 3 months before the exams, that's when the students do intensive exam practice, right? Every week, exam practice, exam practice, exam practice, right? Up to that point, we're just encouraging students just improve, 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 because ultimately you have to remember in the exam, right? You're going to be marked on the quality of your writing. Even if you think that your writing is not finished, the examiners don't look at it like that. They just look at what is there and what can we award it. That's all. So you may feel as though your essay or your story or whatever is not perfect, but the examiner doesn't think like that. They don't think like that. They just look at like, what is the quality of what the student has produced there and what can we award it? So at the end of the day, theoretically, you just have to do enough to get the marks that you want. But what I want you guys to think about is I want you to try to develop a 100% mindset. Okay, 100% mindset. And do me a favor, actually. Type a 1 in the chat if you are taught a 100% mindset at school, and type 0 if you're not. 100% meaning you always aim for 100%. Yeah. I think it's very rare. It's very, very rare, right? It's very, very rare. There's a book there's a writing teacher that I really like. His name is Doug Lemov. He's quite famous in the teaching world. He's got a famous series of books called Teach Like a Champion. But he has got another book that I really like, and it's called Practice Perfect. Practice Perfect is really a book for teachers, but plays on this idea. We have this saying, practice makes perfect. He's saying in that book that that's not actually true, that practice doesn't actually make perfect. He said what practice does is it embeds habits. That's what it does, right? So if I do something regularly, my brain is going to become wired to doing that thing that way, right? And all of my neural circuitry and whatever, all that other stuff that's required, my muscle memory, all that stuff, it's going to become used to doing it that way. So this is what he basically says in the book. He says that let's say, for example, if every time I practice, I'm always aiming to just be okay, just do enough and just get it over and done with, which is quite a common goal. We just want to get it over and done with. Then that's going to become embedded in my system. It's going to become embedded in what I do. And the more we do that, the harder it becomes to break out of that habit, right? And what we often find is that is where a lot of students, in fact, most students are actually starting at that point. They're not used to aiming for 100% most of the time. Like the average grade is what? Grade 4, grade 5, right? And that's the reason why that happens, is because they're not really aiming for the top. They just want to be okay, and just as long as I've done it, that's okay. But I want you guys to go past that and think about it, right? So that's why he calls the book Practice Perfect, because he's saying that when you practice, you need to try your best to hit 100%. And he asks a question in there, which I've never heard an answer to. he asked this question, can you think of one good reason why you shouldn't aim for 100%? One good reason, so there isn't any reason for that, right? Yeah, there is no reason, exactly, right? And a lot of people think that it's impossible in English to get 100%, which is not true at all. It's not true, okay? There's another reason why you should aim for 100%, which is also really important. Check this out, right? This is a graph. It's based on a study done by Ofqual. I don't know if you guys know who Ofqual is. They're the regulatory body. They regulate the exams, right? And they did a study in 2018. Now, check this out, right? This is the accuracy per subject, right? With examiners. So the way it works, right, is this. You have the lead examiner. The lead examiner sets a standard, right? And they say, and they'll have like papers that they've marked, and they sort of like test the examiners, right? And they'll say, right, for this one, we've assessed it at this mark, this mark, this mark, this mark, right? Now, what happens with English, the examiners are allowed to mark one mark up or down, okay, for each question, something like that. It's one mark up or down, right? But that's per question. I think I calculated that over a whole paper, I think it can equal something like 2 grades, more or less, if you calculate the entire difference over the whole paper, right? So what that's saying is that 2 examiners can legitimately mark 2 grades difference and both be correct in English. And guess what? Guess which had the highest accuracy? It's obviously the mathematical and scientific subjects, right? It's obvious, right? Because these subjects require a specific answer, right? So if you have a look, maths had a 96% accuracy, chemistry 88% accuracy, physics 85% accuracy. Surprisingly, not 100%. I don't know. Well, I suppose 96 is close enough to 100%. I would have thought these would be closer as well, right? Guess which had the lowest accuracy? English language and literature, 52%. Can you believe it? Yeah. So you have almost a 1 in 2 chance of basically not getting the correct grade in English, So why am I saying this, right? And what's this got to do with 100%? Can anybody tell me, actually? You guys are pretty experienced now, mashallah. You're pretty experienced. So how it can't be fixed? Yeah, it cannot be fixed. Yeah. Nope, it can't be. So there's a reason why I started about the 100% mindset, and now I'm showing you this. Anybody know why? Yes, correct. There is no right or wrong answer. Yeah, Chidindo, explain that a bit more. Explain that a bit more. Marks are easy to get as long as you know what the examiner is looking for. More or less, pretty much true. Yeah, pretty much true. Yeah, I think today so far, all of the messages that I've got, everybody scored at least a 7. A few of them scored 8s, no 9 so far. A couple of them missed out on the 9 just by a little bit, but most of them still on like grade 3s and stuff. Exactly, Taya. That's the point, right? Is that the way to protect yourself from this problem, right? To protect yourself from this problem is try and get as close to 100% as possible. Because here's a question for you guys. What do you think is easier to mark? A piece of writing that shows consistent excellence, or a piece of writing that's got lots of weaknesses? What's easier to mark for the examiners? What do you reckon? What do you guys reckon? Yeah, exactly. The closer you get to 100%, the easier it is for the examiners to mark, because it's so obvious, right? Because the examiners probably don't even have to really even think about it too much. They're reading this thing and they're like, man, that's a great hook. The description's amazing. It's perceptive, persuasive, the structure's great, the argument is interesting. It's easy. You can almost mark instinctively with that, right? But now when, there's no structure, when like there's no detail and there's lots of errors and it's difficult to make out what the person's even trying to say, that's when it becomes difficult to fit it in. Like, which level does this fit into? That's when it becomes difficult. And that's why you guys need to protect yourselves from that by just making your writing just as good as it possibly can be. Try and get to 100%. Yeah. So when we're thinking about 100%, right? If you guys, those of you who've just joined us, right, recently, you know that I make you do a pre-assessment. You know the pre-assessment that I make you do, or that I recommend you do. You guys remember that? And then it sends you a report, and then it gives like recommendations and all that kind of stuff. The purpose of that questionnaire, right, is to take into account everything you guys do, right? Yeah, of course, when you get to the exam, yes, you need the technique and you need the skill and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is this, right? Every little step that you take from now until the exams is going to have an impact. Everything. Like, for example, turning up on time to your sessions, coming to support sessions, asking questions, participating, completing your exercises, everything. Even those little tasks, the targets, the voice notes, those things are actually based on educational research. All these little things make a difference, Like, look, I guarantee all of you are going to produce a grade 7, 8, 9 piece of writing, 100%, whatever. You're going to do that. In this session, you're going to do it in your mock. Some of you already done it. Some of you already scored 9s and stuff like that in your mocks, yeah? But the thing about the exam is you've got to put everything together in the one. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. It's very challenging. So like, for example, today, everybody's got a 7 or an 8, right? No 9s yet. I'm just like, oh, who's going to get the 9? But the thing is, most of those students, to be honest with you, start on 3s. That's the truth. Most of them start on 3s and 4s. So they've actually made really good progress. We've had, in fact, I've got a couple of them here that I can show you quickly. This student here, right? I warned him. He did well. He got an 8, right? He jumped from 4 to an 8, right? What happened? You know what happened with him? He scored a 9 within his first 3 months of this, right? Within 3 months, he scored a 9. As soon as he scored the 9, he sent me a message saying, okay, I'm going to focus on my other subjects now. And I warned him. I said, look, in the exam, it's going to be different. Right, you have to put everything together if you want the 9 in the exam. It's like you've got to be sharp. I said to him, I'm advising you continue practice all the way through, even in the exams. Just do a little bit of practice, even between your exams, all the way through until the last exam. When you put the pen down, that's when you relax. I did warn him. So his mom was like, yeah, we're a little bit disappointed about the grade 6. And I said, yeah, but I warned you guys, didn't I? I warned you, like he could have definitely scored like a 9. This student here, she's on grade 3. She finished on a 6 and an 8, 6 marks away from a 9. We still haven't had that one student go from a 3 to a 9. We haven't had it. I think we had one student go from a 3 to an 8. I think it was 1 mark away from a 9. Still hasn't happened. This student, it was funny about this one, yeah. The dad sent a message saying we're disappointed that he got a 7 out of 6. And I was like, but he started on a 3. This student started on a 3. And he scored a 76. And he was like, yeah, but he's scoring 8s and 9s in the mocks. And I said, yeah, but the mocks are different. That's the thing about the mocks. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful with the mocks, right? Don't take them as a guarantee of anything. Even if you get a 1 in the mocks, don't take that. You're not going to get a 1 in the exam, right? Nuha from 4 to 7 as well. Korede 3 to 7 as well. Same thing, yeah? If I'm looking at all these students, right, he could have got a 9. But he should have carried on practicing. So that's the thing about him, right? With this student here, I knew she wasn't going to get a 9. I knew she was going to get close, but I knew she wasn't going to, because when the exam was going on, I was reviewing, we always review with them. How did this go? How did that go? And when there was something, I can't remember, I had a conversation with her about something that happened. And she made some changes to her strategy, and I was like, "Oh, it's not going to help you in the exam." Here's the thing, right? You see all the things that we're going through today, all the things we've gone through now, all the strategies, even when we go forward into the term and stuff like that, all the techniques, everything. You have to try your absolute best in the exam to do them exactly how we've taught you. Exactly. If you change something, look, if you're aiming for grade 9, yeah. You know what a grade 9 means? It means you've got to score nearly 90%. That's what it means. Any small little change, boom, your chances of scoring grade 9 just go down. Any small change in anything. Even now, for example, as you guys are going through this, any little thing, right? So some of you know, right? your targets, have you been sending them? That little thing could cost you in the exam. Your voice notes is something called the Feynman technique, which is based on an educational research technique called active recall. You guys, some of you probably know, active recall is when essentially a testing technique. Any sort of testing technique, whether that's a quiz, whether that is writing an essay, whether it's a test, whether it's just even me teaching you this now, that I'm doing active recall. Teaching somebody else is actually one of the best forms of active recall you can do. So the stuff that you guys learn here, try and teach it to one of your friends. It's one of the best ways that you will learn and retain the information, right? So that 30-second voice note, that is a Feynman technique that is based on educational research. If you're skipping that, right, and if you know who you are, some of you, even after the session, I say to you guys, do not leave until you've done it. Some people still leave without doing it. And then what they'll do, they'll send me a text message. I learned X, Y, Z. That is not the Feynman technique. It's not, right? And here's the thing. Remember, everything you do becomes a habit, right? So if I'm saying, do it this way, send a voice note, 30 seconds, do this way, but you send a text message instead. Now what you're doing is you're embedding the belief that you can start choosing what to do and what not to do. You start embedding that. And now when I say attend a support session, you're going to be, oh, well, maybe I don't need to attend it. You know what I mean? And when I say write it this way, oh, maybe I don't need to do that. When I say use this technique, well, maybe I can change this bit. And then afterwards you get a result, you're like, oh, I'm a bit disappointed with that grade 6. That's why. That's the reason why. Try your best, guys, until you've mastered the grade 9. Just do what we say. Just do what we say, because this is what will happen. This is what will happen. It's a very, very fine line. It's a very fine line. But overall, I mean, it's still a great result. Still an excellent result. You know, from a 3 to an 8 is a brilliant result. You know, so super, super happy with that. But they could have done it. They could, even the student here, he went from 3 to 7, but he could have got a 9 if he wanted to. But to be fair, to expect someone to go from a 3 to 9 is a bit much. It's a bit much, to be honest with you. But the point is, they can do it. They can. That's the point, right? It was just some little steps in between. And so I called him. I said to him, absolutely nothing to be just disappointed by. That's actually a brilliant result. Of course, he could have got a 9. Yeah, he could have. But hey, I could have been a millionaire. Could have been a Formula 1 driver. Who knows, right? But that's just not reality. But the point is, you can do these things, right? But what I'm trying to say to you guys is this, yeah, is you guys have to trust that if we're saying do this thing this way, just do it. Just do it, guys. Just do it. Don't try and skip anything. You should be attending support sessions. You should be asking questions. You should be doing all of that stuff, right? But you know what? We're getting closer to the term, right? So very soon, you guys are going to start switching to more analytical writing, right? I mean, this is like the main thing that we do during the year. For me, it's like I say, for me, it's a bit of a shame. I prefer creative writing, but it is what it is. And for whatever reason, analytical writing is the dominant skill in English language and literature. It is the dominant skill, right? But remember that what we're trying to do with this is that you're learning these techniques from the inside, and that's actually what that new writing tool was about. So what I did with the new one is, as you guys go through and you're choosing the techniques, it will now ask you, what technique have you chosen? Why have you chosen it? What effect do you want to have on your reader? And I can't remember the other thing. Oh yeah, and what ideas do you want your reader to think about? Why? Because when we analyze, right? So another thing about when you guys do the assessment, those of you who are new, you do the pre-assessment, you get feedback, a report, right? And that report outlines a technique, right? An analytical technique, right? And then there's also a guide. Read the guide if you haven't read it yet, right? So this is for the new students. For those of you who've been with us for a while, you guys already have this stuff. You already know this stuff anyway. So I'll just show you quickly. The guide will look something like, so it looks something like this. If you have a look in here, there are all sorts of things. This is the general sort of like path that we take you guys through. So you start with foundations, organization, and then we'll do like a little bit of mark scheme work, and then writing practice and exam practice, okay? A bit of mindset work as well. There is a profile of a top-level student. Read it. I want you guys to be this type of student. Okay, I want you to be this type of student. So, for example, I'll read a couple of things, right? And this is what we always find with the top-level students. This is how they behave, right? So if I look here at this bit here, it says, expert learners are knowledgeable, but they want to know even more. They know how to find information and what is valuable to them. And I like the fact that they don't say, I say top-level student, but they say expert learners. This is based on something called the Universal Design for Learning. It's like a framework for learning, again, based on educational research. They call it expert learners because part of what we're trying to do with you guys here is not just to get you to be good at GCSE English. We're actually trying to teach you the learning process. So you're learning, for example, I get better at writing through drafting. I get better at writing by accepting my errors in my writing and just improving on them. And there's no issue with that. And that's normal. It's actually a good thing, right? It also says that expert learners take great care of their learning. They invest their emotions and feel pleasure when learning new things. They do not wait for somebody to help them. They manage frustration and maintain their motivation and involvement, even if they fail sometimes. I'll read that one more time. Expert learners take great care of their learning. They invest their emotions and feel pleasure when learning new things. They do not wait for somebody to help them. Okay, they manage frustration and maintain their motivation and involvement, even if they fail sometimes. You know what's funny? I'll tell you something, right? It's so hard for me sometimes, like especially when I'm dealing with new parents. It's so hard. A lot of parents enter the subject and they enter tuition with this expectation that tuition means that a teacher is going to do everything for my child. They have this, I don't know if they have it consciously, but this seems to be the expectation. Sometimes they will literally ask me, how are you going to get my child to do the work? I'm like, I'm going to teach them and they're going to do it. That's it. That's it. Like you would never go to a dentist and say, why are my teeth rotten? It's your fault. Like you would never do that. And every adult knows that that is not how life works. All adults know that there's only one person responsible for our success, and that's us. And so part of this process, we're trying to teach you guys to try to take care of your success. It's basically what we're trying to say. You do that initially just by following the process, right? And then you will see eventually, as you start to become a lot more skillful and really understand what you do, you can start to become more creative with what you do. We still want you to obviously work with the way that we're asking you to work. But like, for example, I don't have to tell Parashah to go and write a Macbeth essay. She just does it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't tell her to do it. She just did it. And she's like, oh, can you have a look at this? And then she does the language. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't have to tell her that. Right. And that's how we want you guys to be. But for those of you who are just starting and you're still building up your skills, I want you to just follow the process exactly, in the beginning, at least the first few months, right? So, and I want you guys to be like this. Be like this. Yeah. And aim for 100%. Anyway, so have a look at that, guys. Now, the thing that I was going to show you, and I wish I forgot now, is actually, if you scroll down in there, you'll see that there's a mark scheme, by the way. There's a section on the mark scheme, but scroll down a bit more. Where is it? Yeah, you've got essay structure, which is fine, but it's this, okay? So when we move into analytical writing, remember what is analytical writing? Analytical writing is just you demonstrating understanding of how the text was put together. That's basically what it is, okay? And then you'll then need to understand, okay, well, what's the criteria? Okay, so the examiners are going to mark you and they're going to want to see certain things that they want to give you marks for. And as long as you've got those things, they're going to give you the marks for it, right? So that means we need to have a strategy. Right? We need to have a strategy for that, okay? But if you think about what we've done so far, everything that we have gone through, right? You have learned structural techniques. You've learned plot techniques. You've learned like the different parts of a story, the hook and the setup and the denouement and all the different techniques within that. And then you've got the tool and it tells you about metaphors and similes and onomatopoeia and there's effects and all that. My advice to you guys is go back and read those things again. Go back and read them, right? Because when we then move on to analysis, you're going to be thinking about these things here. So essentially what you do with analysis is you take a quote and then you think about, well, what's the idea behind the quote, right? That becomes your topic sentence. That becomes your topic sentence. What is this quote talking about? So same as you, when you're writing something, what idea is this exploring? What are you trying to explore with this idea? Okay. And then the next thing you'll need to do with that quote is try and figure out, okay, well, what techniques is the author using in this quote? Same for you. You're writing a story. What technique have you chosen here, right? Then you also need to do something called close analysis. Close analysis when you break it down. Okay, so you look at the quote that you're analyzing. You think about the individual words. Do they have certain connotations, implications? Is the meaning important in some way? What about the sounds, right? Does it use lots of like or ba 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 ba, so fricatives, sibilants, plosives, right? Those are the technical names of those types of sounds, right? Why? Like, for example, are they trying to reflect, I don't know, a war scenario? Is that why they've got lots of sounds like ba 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 ba? Is that why they're doing that? What do you think is actually going on there? Or is there like an image of like a snake? Is that why they've got lots of is that why? Like, what do you think's going on there? So you go into detail about that. Same for you. So when you're choosing the particular words, what particular words am I choosing here for this particular section? And what ideas am I trying to convey? Then we got to think about the effects, right? The effects is 3 or 4 things. Oh, I just realized, have I put it in here? Effects. Oh, have I forgotten about effects? Oh dear, sorry, I've forgotten about effects. But it is in the toolkit, I believe. I'll show you in a second. So effects, right? This, by the way, this is one of the areas in analysis that helps you to either jump a number of marks or drop them. Well, you don't drop marks, but you just don't score them, right? Because if you think about it, right, it's actually easy to find a technique. It's easy. It's not hard to say this is a metaphor, this is a simile, whatever. That's easy. Anybody can, even a grade 1 student can do that, right? So what's the difference between a lower level piece of writing? Let me not say student, a lower level piece of writing and a higher level one. The higher level one shows a much deeper understanding of what the author is trying to do. That's the difference. And one of the things that they can do is they can talk about the effects, right? Okay, to stop me from talking so much, I apologize, guys. There are 4 levels of effects. Who knows what there are? Well, I'm so sorry. Let me correct myself. I think there are 4 levels of effects. I think there are 4 main levels of effects that I advise you guys to learn and talk about, right? When you're analyzing, right? Does anybody know what they are? What are the 4 levels of effects? Let me check. Yes, in school they tell us that. Yeah, exactly. Actions. Oh, you're very close. In fact, you're 75% correct. Hadil is 75% correct. There's one thing that's missing. And if you can tell me in order, no, I'm talking about effects on the reader. Effects on the reader or the audience, okay? How does it affect us? What do we mean by this thing called effects? It's in every single mark scheme that requires you to look at the author's techniques. It's in there. It's one of the big differentiators between the students who are scoring at the lower level and the ones who are, that's interesting, Parasha. You may be correct, to be honest with you. All right, let me show you quickly. Right. You guys are very close, very, very close. Right. Like if you go to the toolkit, yes, effects. Right. If you have a look, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So if you think about it, right? You see, when we first started this, what did we do? We first thought about what is it you want to write about? And if you noticed, at regular junctions, I've got the writing. I'm going to call it writing tool. I don't want to say bot because it feels too cheap, right? I want to say bot. I've got the writing tool to ask you, why do you want to write about this thing? Or what's the idea behind this, right? Yes. So when I say techniques, I include language and structure. Okay, both these things, right? So we have to consider both. I mean, you could even go down to things like genre and form as well, but some people argue that those are actually just structure, whatever. But overall, language and structure, right? Now, if you think about it, yes. So like I'm saying to you guys, is that I've asked you guys to think about why you're writing this thing. Okay, what is the idea you want to convey through it? What does it mean, your story, right? I'm trying to move you beyond just like GCSE, you just write a description with some adjectives and then that's it. Halas. No. I want you to think about what is it that you're trying to say in your writing? What's your idea, right? So if you think about it, the reason why I'm asking you to do this is because that is how proper writers write. They usually have like real professional authors. They have something they want to say. Now, we don't know, generally speaking, what it is that they want to say. We don't know this, right? So we just evaluate. And we just say, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Cool, no problem. That's that's how we should be doing. Because at the end of the day, unless the author has specifically said, this is why I wrote the text, which is very rare, you've got a few cases of people like William Golding, who've got interviews, and he said, yeah, I want the reader to know in Lord of the Flies about what I believe about the inherent evil of mankind, for example, right? Okay, fine, cool. So with him, yes, he tells us that. And you might find a few other examples of that. But generally speaking, probably more than 90% of the time, you're not going to know. So we just evaluate. We just think it could be this, could be that, right? But you're going to know why you've written the text, okay? But either way, that author, they have something they want to say. It could be a moral, it could be a message, or it could just be an idea. They just want you to think about something, right? They just want you to consider something, right? But in order for them to get you to think about it, guess what? The first thing they need to do is they must make you focus, right? They must draw your focus to something, okay? And they're going to do that by choosing, what am I writing about in this part of the story, right? So you guys have done your plot, right? You've chosen an ordinary world. You've chosen an opening image. Then you've chosen a next thing and a next thing, right? Exactly. So you got the hook, and then you've got the next part, the next beats, and all that kind of stuff. And each one has something specific. And you choose what it is that you want to focus on there, right? And then you're going to use the language on top of that to draw even more focus. You're going to choose whether you want the language to be powerful or subtle, okay? And that's what we're going to have a look at today, by the way. And then, but if you think about it, right, these are all stories. They're all stories or speeches or something. So the key with the stories, we must feel emotions. If I'm not excited by it, feel tense or suspense, sorry, not suspension, suspense, or laughter or sadness or anger or empathy or sympathy, the story is meaningless. You're gonna lose interest very quickly and just be like, this is a waste of my time, right? But if it hooks us and you're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen there? It's like, wait a second, are they saying that this thing's gonna happen down the line? Let me wait and see, right? If I'm not feeling that as I'm reading or watching it, it's gonna be like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother, right? So the emotions are key. They're absolutely key. And one more thing quickly about the emotions, actually all of this stuff, they're going to be tied to the themes, right? So if the author wants me, for example, in Inspector Calls, if the author wants me to think negatively about capitalism, they want me to understand their point of view, that they think capitalism is a destructive force in society. It creates inequality, blah, blah, blah. Well, what he's going to do is he's going to create a character like Mr. Berling, who represents all the negative traits of capitalism from the author's perspective. He's greedy, he's ignorant, he's selfish, he doesn't care about others, he doesn't really understand the world. And so Precy's going to embed all of these traits into that character. And so when we see this character behaving, we're going to go, man, he's so annoying, he's so disgusting, he's terrible. Like, I don't like this guy, right? Why? Because he represents those ideas that the author is trying to convey. Does it make sense? Right? And that's where the emotions are really important. And then you see what's going to happen is that my emotions are going to dictate my thoughts. So I'm going to feel, I don't like this thing, right? I don't like this thing. I don't feel positively towards this thing. And then I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't like this type of behavior. I don't like it. Or it could be the opposite. The author may be trying to get me to like something else, right? And then it may possibly lead to real world actions. Some texts do actually have that effect. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, right? The whole purpose of that was to make racism die down and to change the structure of society, to get people of different races and cultures to talk to each other, to work together, to go to school together, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? So these things can have real world effects. So it is something that I want you to think about. It is in here, okay? So just last thing quickly about this, right, guys? Don't forget to go back, right, and have a look, for example, at, oh yeah, by the way, I've uploaded an audio, by the way, for the plot. Let me just show you quickly here. What I'm saying is this, go back to these types of things. I've uploaded an audio for this. You can actually listen to it.
Causes the next. It is meticulously composed to take the reader on an emotional journey, reveal a specific view of life.
So if you can't be bothered to read it, you can listen to it, okay? And then you've got the documents, right? More about plot, right? So read the document as well. Go through that. Think about things like universal human values, right? So recap these things. So you got these things here. But to be fair, this is actually in the workbook. So just check, some of them are actually just in the workbook. So if you go step 7, you got all this stuff here. right? All of this stuff is going to be important when you then go on to analyze. Scene, outline. What have we got here? Let's just check. What have we got here? Oh yeah, the metaphor document. Remember how to create metaphors, right? So go back to this and think about like how you actually, some techniques of creating metaphors, adjectives and nouns, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So go back to that, have a look at it, read the toolkit as well. Structural elements. This is one of the things I get asked all the time. What is structure, right? Have a look. What is structure, right? So you've got all these things, different types of hooks, different types of setup techniques, different types of reaction techniques, epiphany, etc., etc. Sorry, guys. So go back to those. And then obviously we did draft 1, which is step 9 in the last lesson. So that's where we hopefully are going to be up to. We're going to be working on step 10 today. But like I said, guys, I mean, I'm actually really happy with all your writing. It's really cool, by the way. Everybody's got a different idea. So that's the really nice thing about it, right? So some of you've got detective stories, mystery, there's some fantasy stories, there's action, there's all sorts of different stories, right? And it's really, really nice to see. But what I want you guys to try and grasp is, and by the way, you see in part 2 of this lesson, you see I made a document for you guys. So if you have a look at that, it's passages. So I've given, I found example passages that you might want to just read and just see how they work, right? And so for example, The Shining from Stephen King, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, blah, blah, blah. And they all have something different that they focus on. There are dramatic examples. There's dystopians, there's mystery, voice as well, interesting. So different characters, duality, something I want you guys to think about in your stories. Does your story explore duality? It's a very important part of stories. Dramatic action, and again, unique character voice, right? So it is in the lesson in the link that I've given you. So it's number 2 there. Cool. So what I want to do with Parashai is, because this is like her second time doing it, I think, and also bear in mind, guys, that obviously I have updated this stuff a lot. So even since she did it last time, a lot of the stuff is new. Like it's the relatively same structure, but the tools are new, the resources are new, some of the stuff I just made this morning, right? And so even for her, she's going through this, she's learning. And I'll be honest with you, I've learned a massive amount since doing this with you guys, like a huge amount, right? And one of the things that I really want you guys to try and get used to, right, is because like in schools, I think you get taught, like I said, these simple techniques, right? Use adjectives, use adverbs. Everything has to be pow wow all the time. Boom, bam, bash, bing, bang. That's not how professional authors write. All right. They focus on rhythm, pace, subtlety. And wherever it's necessary, you have something like bam, right at the right time. Right? The words that you choose, the power that it has to suit that particular moment, because your primary goal is actually just to keep the reader moving on, right? Another thing as well, you might get taught things like use big words. Let me show you. You don't have to believe me, right? Let me show you. Okay, look at this, right? This idea of using big words, right? Let me show you how that actually contradicts what you're going to see in professional authors. So these are not my writing. These are from real, proper professional authors, okay? The Shining by Stephen King. Have a look. Oh, actually, let me read The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin. I really like this one, actually. It's got really nice rhythm, I think, right? So it says, with a clamor of bells that set the swallows soaring, the festival of summer came to the city Omelas. Bright towered by the sea, the rigging of the boats in harbor sparkled with flags. In the streets between houses with red roofs and painted walls, between old moss-grown gardens and under avenues of trees, past great parks and public buildings, processions moved on. Somewhat decorous, old people in long stiff robes of mauve and grey, gravemaster workmen, quiet merry women carrying their babies and chatting as they walked. In other streets, the music beat faster, a shimmering of gong and tambourine, and the people went dancing. The procession was a dance, right? See any big words there? I mean, maybe processions, maybe the chorus. The rest of the words are simple. Look, 1 syllable, 1 syllable, 2 syllables, 1 syllable, 1 syllable, 1, 1, 1. See what I'm saying? They're all simple words, but they're just specifically chosen. And I want you to pay attention to this, right? Look at how subtle the sibilance is. Set the swallow soaring. You might not even have noticed it. But it's just enough just to give it rhythm and pace. Because here, this is not about the drama at this part. This part is about setting the scene. So she's not going to go boom, bam, bing, bam, pow, wow. You know what I mean? She's not going to do that at this point. She's going to use techniques that are appropriate for this part, right? Yeah. So just a little bit of alliteration, right? Cool. And that's what I want you guys to try and start thinking about when you're writing. Okay. Not everything has to be full power to the max all the time. Not everything. Right? Sometimes you just want the rhythm and the pace just to keep them going and just enough to paint whatever image it is that you're trying to paint, right? And that's why I want Parashai to explain what she's done, because I think she's nailed that really, really well. Okay. So Parashai, I'm really sorry. I was going to send you the questions, but I just ran out of time. Do you mind sharing your screen and then you read your passage to us?
Yeah.
And then just explain your choices. And I don't know if other students have got questions, then they can ask you, inshallah. Okay, so just going to read a passage to us, inshallah. So have a listen.
Somewhere behind her eyes, a whisper claws for attention, a warning simmering just under Elena's skin, waiting to erupt. She stands pressed against her locker, her friends gathered close in the well and spill of corridor noise. When someone tells a joke that falls flat, she laughs anyway, a little too quickly, her smile straining at the edges. No one notices her eyes flicking to the classroom door, then drifting to the ribbons of shadow pulling beneath the lockers. In places even the lights seem afraid to touch. Each time she half expects something to blink back from the blackness. The school bell chimes, the corridor empties. Elena trails behind Caroline. She watches Caroline's hand drift again and again to her neck, fingers scratching the angry red mark, blooming below her jaw. Caroline moves stiffly, eyes locked ahead. She flinches at each sudden noise from shadowed classrooms. The usual bustle fades to a distant hush as Caroline grabs her things and vanishes into the late afternoon, leaving Elena in the lingering silence. That evening, Elena's phone buzzes. Caroline, can you call me if you're awake? A pause. Messages hang between them, fragile. Caroline, never mind, sorry. 2 grey ticks. No reply. Elena tries to call. Nothing. Morning comes, but Caroline is gone. No text answered, no posts, no sign of her at school. Days slip by, heavy and slow. Unease twists through Elena, gnawing at her resolve. The image of Caroline's hurried retreat from school replays in her mind, unsettling every moment of quiet. Night falls 2 days later. The city suffocates under thick, uneasy dark. Elena heads home late, grocery bags biting red into her aching hands. Her footsteps echo down empty pavements. The streetlights stutter, blinking in and out. At the corner of her street, a sudden chill prickles her skin. She hesitates. Fog coils in the air, dense, impenetrable.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that. So do you want to just do us a favor and like just maybe pick 3 like stylistic choices, structural choices, linguistic choices, and then just explain what effect you're trying to achieve.
So my first choice I had to make some changes in my writing because I did like my whole story, but obviously I couldn't write the whole story in exam conditions. But the reason was because I still wanted my mysterious element of the voices in Elena's head. So I used that idea as the hook of my story in order to captivate the reader to wanting to know more in my story. And the second choice was to have a bubble surrounding Elena, kind of like she's alone in the universe, to almost make us readers resonate with Elena. For example, when you zone out with your friends, that's the idea I chose to use when forming my second paragraph. And then my third choice was to have some sort of communication in the story because my school, even though they didn't mind dialogue, but they always said not many can punctuate it correctly and some turn it into a whole page. So at first I didn't want it, but after Saturday session, when Sir found bits of my work a bit off, that's when I realised that dialogue is okay, but use it in a way that it's not going to overpower the whole story, but give it a sense of flow through your story when necessary.
Wow, very, very good. Excellent. And that's how I want you guys to be thinking about it. There's one more thing that I want to just point out, which is that one thing that I was really impressed by is it's quite subtle. It's not overbearing, right? So, but I want to point out a couple of things, right? So here, for example, right, I really like this idea about the voice. Somewhere behind her eyes, a whisper claws for attention, a warning simmering just under Lena's skin, waiting to erupt. Can you see? It's like the image is there, right? I can see the image. The metaphor is great, okay? But it's not making me feel too overpowered. She's not choosing massive words. And I want to just point out a little contrast later on. She says, she stands pressed against her lock. I really like that image. Her friends gathered close in a whirl and spill of corridor noise. When someone tells a joke that falls flat, she laughs anyway, a little too quickly, her smile straining at the edges. That's such a great image, right? It's like you can see that she's hiding something, or she's just not being open about something, right? But what I really like is this, right? So far it's very, very subtle. If you have a look here, then you say, no one notices her eyes flicking to the classroom door, then drifting to the ribbons of shadow pooling. The choice of the verbs at that point is so well chosen. It's so, because if you look at the rest of it, it's very, very subtle, right? But then you've got flicking, drifting, pooling, right? What made you, can you explain what made you choose those particular verbs? Because what I'm trying to get everybody to understand is that contrast between the subtle rhythm and then just at the right points, just a bit more power.
So I tried to put myself in Elena's position and thought of like flickering lights. And then I thought, what about the verb flicking? And then I asked the AI to seamlessly flow it into my story.
Cool. Yeah. So that's what I want you guys to think about, right? Think about those choices there, right? So, and I think what I've learned as well is that most of the time you're going to be focusing on rhythm and subtle effects. It's not going to be too powerful all the time. And what that does is that when you then choose to add in the extra power, the contrast and the juxtaposition, it makes it more emphatic. So it helps to draw the reader's attention to that particular thing. Because if everything is powerful, then nothing stands out. If everything's got max power all the time, nothing stands out, right? But what you're trying to do here with the choice of the verbs is you're trying to say to the reader is that this thing here is really important, or there's something behind this door, there's something hiding there, or she thinks there's something hiding there. There's a bit of mystery going on, right? So it's a really powerful way of drawing our attention to this thing, what is going on there, okay? And I just wanted to show you guys that, because that is what I want you guys to try and achieve, right? And by the way, I'm not saying that any of you others haven't. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that that's a really good example of that, okay? Anybody got any questions for Parashai? Yes, Jatinder, go ahead, man.
I have a question. I
Yes.
mean, how was she able to like blend them together?
Parashai, what do you mean blend them together? What?
In the story there was like this it's like everything like moves quickly. Like 1 second there's a tense moment. 1 second there's happy moment. 1 second there's like a moment where you feel regret. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's a great question. That's a great question. Parashai, do you want to answer that? Do you know what he's talking about?
I think because like my original story was just her in a school and then late night. There had to be some sort of turning point. So I kind of just thought of like, surely when someone's like went home from school, they would text their friends and then they go off and no answer or reply. So I kind of just put myself in the character's position and like use experiences that I've done and dealt with. And I just thought, let's just add into my story. And then the AI helped to refine it more because obviously I've got ideas, but my ideas are not well flown through. So that the AI helps it to make it seamlessly flow.
Jatinder, does that answer?
Yeah.
I think the thing is, look, notice, by the way, look, she's actually got a previous draft here. See that? So she's got a previous draft there. And then you've got the updated draft here. And this is the thing that I'm trying to get you guys to understand is that this is the nature of writing, is you improve through drafting, right? Even with mine, you'll see the changes that I made from the first draft to the second one, they're not massive, but I think that it helps with things like flow and stuff like that a bit better. And I think that you guys just have to just try and get used to just drafting and just improving. And just every time we go through it, just a little touch here, a little touch there, a little touch there, and just see what really needs emphasis and what doesn't, right? But the point is that we still want to be using techniques, right? So there's still, look, somewhere behind the eyes. So it's a nice metaphor, right? A warning simmering, that's a metaphor as well, right? Waiting to erupt. So actually this is full of metaphors, but they're quite subtle. They're not overbearing, And that's where I just want you guys to try and like get to, right? But what I'm trying to say is this. I want you to develop more of a mature style of creative writing like a professional and not like a GCSE student. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying that you guys are not mature. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I want you to focus and develop it more. Does it make sense? I am absolutely not criticizing anybody, I promise. Does it make sense, guys? So Jadinder's asked a good question. Should I write a new draft? Who can answer it? Should I write a new draft? Yes. And why do you say yes, Mesa? Yeah. But why? Yeah, because drafting helps you to refine it. But one more quick thing about drafting. Yeah? What Parashah has done here is what I also do. I never delete my drafts. Okay? Don't delete your drafts. Just do a new one somewhere else at the bottom of the document on a new page or something, right? Have your old one to compare, because sometimes you'll change something in the new one and then you'll be like, wait a second, actually, maybe the old one was better. Right? Just because you change something doesn't mean it's always better. Sometimes you want to go back to one particular thing that you did before, one phrase, one word, something. So please, guys, just as a general rule, even with your language and your literature, please don't delete any of your drafts. Keep them and use them for reference. All right, so we're on step 10 in your workbook. So please go there in your workbooks. And on the website, it's going to be this page. I'll give the link in case anybody hasn't got it. We're going to be looking at character goals. Okay, we're going to be looking at character goals, right? And just as a general principle, what I want you guys to remember is this, right? So what if we do, like today, we're going to look at goals, right? What are your characters' goals at the beginning and at the end of the story, right? Whenever we look at something, the next step is I'm going to ask you to try and put that into your writing purely by yourself, right? Once you've tried to do it yourself, and now what you guys want to be trying to do is use more language devices and stuff like that. So just think a little bit more carefully about what particular style I'm going to use, right? Start off by thinking about the Mad Father's Crops techniques. Remember, that's in the toolkit: metaphor, alliteration, direct address, foreshadowing, assonance, blah, 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 right? Start off by thinking about that. But remember, there are many other techniques as well. Those are not the only techniques, right? So start off by thinking about that, and then you try and implement it into your writing. So for example, we're going to look at goals today, right? And it's your character's goals, right? At the beginning, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our plot, our overall plot from step 6, and we're just going to implement that in there. We're going to find somewhere in the beginning where it's appropriate for us to put that. And then we're going to look at stakes and fears, and then we'll put it in there, right? And then we'll look at goals at the end, and then we'll put it at the end, right? Because at least that way you're starting to fill out parts that you may have missed, okay? Then once you've done the plot, then you go to your scene from step 9, right? Oh, so the tricky thing is you actually need to copy your scene from step 9 to step 11. So step 11 is draft 2, right? But before you do draft 2, we need to do the goals at the beginning and end, and then we need to do the characterization after that as well. So we go through a technique, you do it in your plot, you do it in your scene, and then you use the tool to refine it. Does it make sense? So the draft you'll be pasting into step 11, not now when we do it afterwards. When you paste it into step 11, will actually be your draft from step 9. So you'll actually go to step 9. See, I've got mine here. I'll just copy this whole thing, go to step 11, paste it here. See? Story draft 2. So if you look at step 9, what was step 9? Step 9 was draft 1, right? Story draft 1. And then when I go to step 11, that is story draft 2. But the tricky thing is between step 10 and step 11, there's actually 2 different things we need to do. We need to work on goals and a bit of characterization. So once we've done goals, we then do draft 2, right? And then when we do draft 3, it's when we finish the characterization. Does that make sense? But don't worry. We're just going to do the first part today, all right? We're just going to do the first part today. We'll do it step by step, promise, all right? All right, let's read through this, inshallah. Let me go through this, right? So step 10, right? We're going to start working on characterization, your protagonist character profile. Task. Read the definitions below, then complete parts 1 to 6 about goals, needs, and character, right? So part 1, 2, 3. And once we've done 3, that's when we do our draft, right? Once you've done our draft, you come back to 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So that's what it means. Maybe I need to redesign that. Who knows? Right. We're looking at character goals. So whether you're doing language or literature, you're going to have to analyze passages. There's a protagonist. There are characters in there. They have goals. They have things they're trying to achieve. Your story, your character has a goal. They're trying to achieve something. So the goal definition, the protagonist's goal is usually something concrete like money, gold, a crown that the character desperately wants because they think it will give them some kind of internal fulfillment, like happiness, love, acceptance, peace, etc. By the end of the story, the protagonist often realizes the truth about their initial goal. The truth is often the opposite of what they initially thought. Okay? When we do this exercise, I should have put the definition of need in there, right? If you have a look at this exercise here, it asks you, what are your character's external goals, right? So remember that, this is why it's good to go back, by the way, to have a look, right? But for example, what is a plot? A plot is simply a journey that the character goes through, and it's sort of a symbolic representation of the change that they actually need to go through, right? They start with a mistaken idea. By the end of the text, we see whether they realized their mistaken idea or not. So for example, the character starts with a goal. I want money. I want money, for example, right? I want to win money. I want to stop something. I want to escape from somewhere. I want to leave home. Tired of it, right? Whatever. And then that goal has some sort of internal symbolic meaning to this character. They think that if they get money, like Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, he thinks that if he gets money, he's going to feel safe, right? So he thinks that he can control his environment, right? We learn later on that he had a troubled childhood, let's say it like that, right? And that's why he turned to money. Too many problems. It's like, okay, forget about people. I'm just going to focus on money, right? So he thinks that if he gets money, he's going to be able to control his environment more, right? Because he's given up on people, right? Whatever, okay? But so the goal has a representation, but actually the character has a need that they don't realize or that they are suppressing. They're denying. They have a need, but they're like, no, I don't need it. I don't need it. But they do need it. And so, for example, with Scrooge, his need is that he actually needs to reconnect with his family, and he needs to connect with the people in society as well. That's what will actually bring him happiness. But at the beginning, he's either unaware of that or he just denies it flat out. Okay? And he's going to focus on getting money and controlling his environment instead. And your character is going to have something similar. Oh, quick thing, by the way, quick thing. I have noticed with a couple of you guys, right? Just anyway, a couple of you guys, your stories, some of the stories start straight in the action, right? Now, the thing about that is you have to remember that in stage 2, the character crosses into the special world, right? The action, a lot of times, okay, let me not say action, but let me say when your character is in a foreign environment, that really should be the special world, okay? So whether that's your character going from the village to a city, or going from one dimension to another, or entering some challenge or something like that, that's the special world. My character's special world is when she comes back from death. That's her special world. Her ordinary world up to that point is her life with her dad. That's her ordinary world. And the point of the ordinary world is to demonstrate the problems that she's going through and why she might want to change things that are happening in her life. Okay, so it's just something I just remembered when I was reading some of yours. So just be careful that, like, I don't know, it's difficult for me to say, but normally that's how it works, is that the ordinary world, stage 1, is just their normal, just everyday environment. But it demonstrates why this character might want to go somewhere, change something or whatever. And then you have obviously the stunning surprise, and then they eventually enter the special world. They enter the realm of testing and all that kind of stuff. All right, hope that makes sense. So just think about that when you're plotting, right? So that's the goal. And then we have protagonist definition. I want you guys to really remember this, right? So protagonist is more than just the main character. The protagonist is the character who experiences the greatest change throughout the duration of the story, and whose journey of change reveals the ultimate meaning of the story, the controlling concept. The protagonist is given the greatest amount of focus from the beginning to the end of the story. So they are naturally the main character, but that's not what's special about them. What is special about them is they go through change, and the change tells us what the story means. That's what's so special about the protagonist, okay? Let me ask you a question. If you take the protagonist out, what happens to the story? Who can answer that question? There is no story. Perfect answer. No story. So the protagonist is the story. They are the story. Their journey is the story. It is imperative that you know the change that they go through when you're studying a book. It is imperative that you understand the change that they go through and what it means. What does it mean? Your character's gone from hero to dead butcher, whatever, like Macbeth, for example. What does that mean? Jekyll, he goes from high-class gentleman to dead. Why? Scrooge goes from greedy to generous. Why? Okay. Sheila goes from ignorant to knowledge. Why? What does it mean? Right? Very, very important. Same with your characters. What does your character's change mean? Okay. Character arc definition. Very good. Character development, right? A character arc is the transformation or inner journey of a character over the course of a story from the beginning to the end. The character begins as one sort of person and gradually transforms into a completely different sort of person in response to changing developments in the story. The change is absolute and irreversible. By the way, guess what? Your characters as well of your own journey. You are the heroes of your own journey. You are going through a character development, and so am I. We're all going through it. So the point of stories is they're sort of meant to metaphorically represent real life. Some people call stories a simulator for life. It is common for stories to feature some kind of character versus self conflict, where the protagonist can only achieve their goal once they realize that their main obstacles is, in fact, themselves, just like us. This might be the main conflict of the story. A movie star must overcome their ego to find happiness, or a sub-conflict that mirrors a character's external conflict. A greedy tech bro must defeat an AI that's programmed to accumulate wealth. Interesting. It's this internal conflict that drives the character arc, the inner journey that unfolds over the course of the plot. Just as the narrative arc comes to a head at the climax, so will the character arc. Readers will therefore want to know what effect the climax has had on the character and their personal journey. In the denouement, we should get a sense of how the events of the story have impacted them and whether they have changed for the better, for the worse, or not at all. And you guys are going to determine that with your stories. Okay, look, we're going to work on these tasks, right? And you guys will probably have to just finish this at home, okay? Now what I want you to do is I want you to do this exercise. Remember when we did what did we call it? The universal human values themes, right? Remember, we just ticked what's appropriate for our story. She did this as talk more, sir. Oh dear. Yeah, you're finishing step 9. No problem, Joanne. No problem, guys. Just if you haven't finished step 9, please make sure you finish that, and then we move on to this, right? And then just try your best, guys, over today, tomorrow, over the next few days. Next week is our last week of doing creative writing, okay? And then we switch, all right? So just think about these things and just try and do your best to catch up, all right? Those of you, I don't know if those of you who like just started, you might need to just continue it into the term, but I think you guys know how it works already. Cool. Right. This is how it's going to work, right? Try and do a little bit of this with me now, right? So I want you to think about what is your character's external goal at the beginning, okay? And remember that this goal, in many ways, is false. It's fake. It's not true. It's a shield that the character uses to protect themselves from the truth about themselves, right? So, for example, with my character, Seren, I might say that maybe external goal is to escape. She wants to leave home. I actually can't remember what her main goal is. I need to have a look, but I think it's to escape. She wants to escape, right? And by the way, let me read the different goals, right? So you've got win, stop, retrieve, escape, revenge, deliver, maintain, okay? I want you to choose a main goal. What's your character's main goal, right? You guys can do that right now, right? She is rebellious, Kanika, correct. She is rebellious, but she's still stuck at home, and that's part of what makes her rebellious. She wants to escape. You see, the irony is she does escape, but it's ironic because she escapes and then she comes back as an AI, and then she realizes, oh, actually, maybe that wasn't the best thing after all. Yeah, because remember what caused the crash? She tries to escape from the car as well. So she has this thing about escaping. But we'll see. Maybe I need to refine the idea. Let's see, right? So now, what's my internal goal, right? Is that, does she want positive relationships? So, by the way, these come from psychology, by the way. We all have these things. All right. Does she want positive relationships? Does she want some sort of self-acceptance? Does she want personal growth? Does she want environmental mastery? Environmental mastery just means they want to be able to control their world. They feel like the world is out of control. Too many random things happen to this person, right? Or do they want autonomy? One more thing quickly, yeah? A thing to consider is if you have a look, maybe I need to put this into the tool, actually. if you look at the plot outline, right? Let me show you something. Look, see this? So you got the ordinary world, may have a false sense of balance. We get a snapshot of the character's main problem. Check this out. It says, the opening image represents the central struggle and tone of the story, and it often mirrors the closing image. So I want you guys to think about the closing image. So for example, with mine, she does escape. My character sacrifices herself at the end. She sacrifices herself. So she does kind of escape. I might need to think about it a bit more. I might need to think about it, right? So again, we're just going with what we think is the best option right now. So what would I choose here? I'm going to choose a few things. I'm going to choose personal growth, maybe environmental mastery, which might be ironic as well, in a sense, because she does master it, but then she has to sacrifice herself. And then, for example, with the need, my character's need is she needs to appreciate her parents a bit more. She needs to appreciate family and connection, right? Appreciate family connection. And then we look at stakes and fears. So what is at risk if the if the character doesn't achieve the things that their goals, right? Is it survival? Is it love, identity, freedom, justice, power, knowledge, world-saving, redemption, or achievement? So what do they think? What is at risk, or what is your protagonist most afraid of losing at the beginning? What are they afraid of losing? Maybe freedom? Maybe identity? Maybe love? I don't know. Like family love. That's what I mean. And then we just do the same for goals at the end. Okay. Oh, just pay attention, yeah? For goals at the end, right? You do the same, but there are extra questions at the bottom, right? So what does your character learn about themselves at the end? My character realizes she made mistakes. She realized that she needs to be of service to humanity, etc., right? Don't worry if your idea is not like perfect, right? Because like I said, I'm just showing you how to do it. You'll have to do it afterwards. Yeah, she matured, exactly, right? What tone does the story have? So here you've got options again. Mine is bittersweet. It's bittersweet at the end. What's the universal meaning or message at the end? I don't know. My one is about something about the importance of humanity, the importance of life, the importance of connection, the importance of family, etc., etc. So it's something about that. And then the last part before you draft it is you got to do the character arc. Okay. So which type of character arc does your protagonist experience? I've given you 4 options. Is it positive or negative? Is it ambiguous positive, like it's positive, but it's kind of a bit mixed? Or is it negative, but it's a little bit not really clear, right? Mine is positive, ambiguous positive, right? So my character, what would I choose? From weakling to ambiguous hero, maybe. From immature, from average to ambiguous hero. From lost to somewhat found, could be that. Something like that, right? So I want you to choose what's the most appropriate. And maybe if you think that's not 100% appropriate, you could just type it at the bottom. Okay, so that's what I want you guys to do for homework, please. Okay, do step 10. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Step 10, part 1, 2, and 3. Okay, those should be relatively easy to complete. You're just ticking the boxes and just putting a few notes, right? But I want you to do this. Do this first. Copy your story from step 9. If you haven't finished it, finish it. Copy your story from step 9, paste it into step 11. Okay, do that first. Okay. Then complete step 10, part 1, 2, 3. They do that. For each thing that you put in there, make sure you put it in the overall plot outline, which is actually step 6, and in the draft. Try and use techniques. Okay, so that's the homework. Is that clear? Copy your draft from step 9 to step 11. Then do step 10, parts 1, 2, 3. Make sure you do them in your full plot outline, and then the draft in step 11. Add them in there. Okay, go ahead, Mohammed.
Sir, when do we start doing our next draft?
ASAP. Do it as soon as you try and do it as soon as you finish this session. Try and work on it today, tomorrow, and then Saturday we'll continue with the next part. Oh my gosh, Angelique scored a 9. Yes, I knew she could do it. I knew it. No way. Thank you, Maggie. Yes. Another story for you guys. She scored a 5 in a mocks. Her dad and I nearly fell out because he kept nagging me. Are you sure she's going to do it? Are you sure? And I said to her, she's going to do well. Just let her do it. And he kept asking me, are you sure? Are you sure? I said, listen, you either trust me or you go and find somebody else. Because I'm not going to sit here and talk about the same thing all the time. She scored a 9. 2 9s. Alhamdulillah. I knew it. 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 That's what we want to learn from, guys. That's what we learn from. Inshallah. All of you can score a grade 9. Your